Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Things I Would Tell You event. This is a book that's out now. It's been out since April. I edited it, and my name is Sabrina Mahfouz, and we have Asma and Nafisa here, who are contributors to the book and who are going to read some of their work for you today. And then we're going to have some Q&A sessions. One session. So first of all, I have a little card here. I'm going to read it out because we have to thank Amal for their support of this event. And Amal is a project developed by the Said Foundation. It makes grants in support of Muslim cultural production in the UK, providing opportunities for people in Britain, regardless of their faith or beliefs, to come together and explore the rich diversity of Muslim cultures and arts. Its objective is to help increase understanding between Britain's Muslim and non-Muslim communities and thereby add to the strength and vitality of contemporary British society. In its pilot year, Amal-supported activities go on at festivals, art centres, theatres, schools, places of worship, and in the community. In all its work, Amal is guided by its values of conviviality, can't pronounce that one, so it's compassion and social justice, which is obviously the most important. So I'm going to read to you from the introduction of the book, which will maybe answer some questions as to how it came about and why. And then I'm also going to read very brief selections of the work of other contributors in this book who aren't here today, just to give you a kind of broad overview of the type of stuff that's in here. I felt angered and upset by the misrepresentations I encountered constantly, and I felt grateful when a clear-eyed truth was spoken about us. And then again, who was us? And so the question is asked by Adaf Suef in Mezzatera in relation to being a Muslim living in the West. Who was us? It is a question that has prompted the creation of this book. At the time of writing, this question is one that a person of Muslim heritage living in the West cannot possibly ignore, even if they hadn't previously given it much thought. Our media is deluged by stories about Muslim extremists, Muslim moderates condemning the actions of Muslim extremists, non-Muslims bemoaning the fact that not enough moderate Muslims are condemning the actions of extremist Muslims, the possibilities of your Muslim next door becoming radicalised, perhaps even at their local primary school. This coverage has now been compounded by post-Brexit reports of a catastrophic rise in Islamophobic attacks across Britain, the majority of which have been targeted at women. In the face of such genuine cause for fear, it seems difficult to employ the arts in a truly effective and empowering way. However, one of the aims of this anthology is to dispel the narrow image of what a Muslim woman, particularly a British Muslim woman, looks and lives like. All of the contributors in this book identify as having both a British and a Muslim background or association, regardless of their birthplace, citizenship status, or religiosity. And I'm just going to read, because we're going to hear some wonderful poetry. I'm just going to read some of the extracts that are not poetry. Just to start things off in a spiky way. There's a contributor called Aisha Mirza, and she's written an essay here about living in New York during the Brexit vote and what that was like. It's called Staying Alive Through Brexit, Racism, Mental Health and Emotional Labour. We can talk to the Leave voters all we want, and we can blame old people if it makes us feel good, but they are not the people in charge now or in the future. They did not create this, and this does not serve them. I am lucky enough to have experienced higher education among the elite, the artistic and political leaders of tomorrow. They are scary. They think their white liberalism is flawless. They pretend to listen, but they do not hear a thing. They use our bodies and our stories. They hold us tight in photographs, and they pretend they can't see us when we finally collapse, just like their daddies did. They put our heads on sticks and call it multiculturalism. They are the kind of people who will read this and think I am talking about someone else. Then it goes on. We will talk right after we have dragged the UK's legacy of violence from under its ugly, expensive carpet, after we have learned it, taught it, remembered it, accepted it as an explanation for everything we see. We can talk after we have taught our children mental and physical self-defence. We can talk after we have spoken to each other about mental health, survival, and the anti-blackness we perpetuate within our own communities of colour, oppressing black people in a space they should be safe. We have lots to talk about. If only middle-class white people would stop talking. There are some light-hearted pieces in here too. Well, I probably won't read any out, actually, because the time is getting on. So I'm going to pass over now to Nafisa. And this is a poet who I encountered many years ago. I can't remember. How did we first meet? Do you remember?
I think you saw me performing at Hit the Ode and I messed it up.
In where?
Hit the Ode in Birmingham.
Oh, yeah. No, you didn't mess it up. That's why we're here on the stage together. And was taken immediately by her beautiful use of language and lovely delivery, and have since just seen her write more and more excellent pieces of work. So I think you're going to share some new stuff as well, aren't you, today?
Some stuff that's not in the book.
Yeah, so it'll be a mixture. Some of the poems are from the book, other poems are not.
Hi. So my first poem is called How to Tell Your Parents You're Dating a White Atheist. 1. Reassure them you are still Muslim. 2. Wait for their bodies to relax. 3. Wait for their faces to tense up again as they realize the coming out is still to come. 4. Do not tell them you've been dating for however many years. 5. Leave the exit doors open, wide open. 6. Do not try and explain atheism to them. 7. Do not expect them to smile. 8. Do not try to touch them. 9. Do offer them a helpline. 10. Hardest blow first. He's an atheist. 11. Do not try and explain atheism. 12. Carry on. He's a white atheist. White atheist. Atheist. White atheist. White. 13. Hopefully they will have understood by now. 14. Imagine various scenarios where they hug you with relief and declare through sweaty brows, gosh, phew, at least it's not. 15. In reality, your dad is the one that is crying and your mother is threatening to bury both you and her honour in the backyard. 16. If you are the reason for your father's first heart attack, turn to God and apologise profusely. 17. Maybe don't tell your parents. The ones in the book, they're numbered, they're not titles, so I'm just going to read the numbers and, 3. My little sister is 10. When we leave the house, my mother says to her, put on a longer dress. My father says, where is the scarf? Where is your scarf, girl? They're getting her ready to woman when her woman body is still curled up fetal like, let me sleep forever. Her belly and cheeks plump with girl, with reading Jacqueline Wilson and experimenting with the neon pink free lipstick from Girl magazine, she is not ready to woman. With her cherry-peaked breastlets, her ears unpierced, unsexed. I do not want her to ever woman. She is already looking for the power of woman, and my parents are already telling her that woman needs no power, has no power. When she was born, they were telling me the same. My body is no place for man, no place for me to woman, like real woman. Let me start again. I am 10. My only wish is to have a sister, preferably older. Her name would be Nabila. I'm jealous enough not to see the shift in my parents' hands. No one flinches in the house anymore. I read Girl magazine, wish for a sister to teach me how to experiment with neon pink. She is becoming woman. Perhaps she is already more woman than I ever was at 10. We will never show mother our unfurling pomegranate bodies. Hold on to your seeds, girls. My little sister is already looking for the power of woman, and I'm grinding down the idea right in front of her eyes, telling her to keep running. Keep running. We just gotta keep running, kid. Our bodies are no place for us. Eight. This woman's body cannot remember the first time she saw Dick. Maybe she does and won't say. Maybe she can't say because it was dark at the back of his car and his blue jeans were unzipped, but the flesh he flashed was probably just leg. She closed her eyes anyway. 13. This woman's body sees this other woman in a way where she can only wonder how the hell she does it so damn well. Woman feels in a way she is not supposed to. She watches her rock back in her chair and enjoys her wide smile and her grey gold-tipped eyes for a moment that's not long enough to feel guilty about later. She hears those click-clack clattering keys speed and slow in time with the mind. She feels the last few letters being pushed down, feels herself being pushed and pushed and pushed, and then she knows to stop feeling like this because click-clack clattering keys are even against her ears as she sleeps. This ain't right, she thinks. Imagine she knew. She'd hate you. "17. When you had me up against that tree in Warden Park, our noses melting into each other in the cold, my school blazer crumpled on the frozen grass, the cold air from your mouth forcing me back into the tree, and you jokingly threatened to rape me. I knew then I was not ready to woman. 21. My mind is all woman. It is uneasy. My doctor tells me part of my woman is ill. I don't want to woman anymore, I tell him. He nods without looking at me. His glasses do not budge from the tip of his nose as he continues to take notes. He asks, how long? I say, since my mother birthed me and named me woman. He asks, how long? I say, too long. He says the new tablets will help me woman again. "26. Are you? I don't know. Do you think you are? I'm just in love with her, though. It's just her. It's just her. It's just her. Just her. 27. Pulled up from the pavement on Cottrell's Lane crying by strange women with kind faces. They tell girl it'll be okay. Inside their home, her mother tumbles through door, falls at feet, pink scarf throttling around her neck, unashamed. Eyes bloodshot sockets, noosed hair hitting against her face. Father follows slow and soft, like he has seen and known death. He tries to smile, but cries overhead of girl instead. He fathers. They speak with strange voices. Girl does not listen, but hears. 28. When you birthed me, did you smile? Or did you remember chores instead? Did you hug me that night, the next day, a week later in secret, in the middle of the wheat fields, at the side of your bed, in the middle of the night, your first girl? So much trouble to be born with this girl. 29. My auntie says that they used to woman by shoving pencils down sides of sofas, passing discreet notes like chewing gum in class or selling fags in the corridor at lunchtime, all because my grandfather preferred silence. I watch him now, still sat in the same corner of the room all these years later, still watching through older eyes, still conducting silence in this room, as me and my siblings sit twiddling our thumbs in front of him on Eid Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Nafisa. I'm going to read a short extract of, I've got a play in here that was on at the Bush Theatre. It's about a woman who is a facial rejuvenation specialist, an award-winning Botoxer, and she's being recruited. So I'll do two accents, generic Southern, generic Northern, see how we get on. We want you to run a clinic just like this one, but in Baghdad. I don't want to run a clinic in Baghdad. You'll be in stratospheric demand, the best Botox doctor in London, and she's Iraqi. Perfect. Again, slowly, I don't want to run a clinic in Baghdad. I'm very happy in Shepherd's Bush, thank you. As you know, clients talk when they have treatments. They're nervous, it's intimate, they talk. ISIS have a stronghold there in Iraq, and we, Camilla, I get it. You want me to spy for you, for Her Majesty's government. We want you to provide the unrivaled service and skills you do here, whilst encouraging those who come to see you to let you into their personal lives a little. Their personal lives, and details of planned suicide attacks they might just blurt out in the middle of me injecting their epidermis. Nobody else can do this. How do you know? We run a training centre out there, 200 students per year, the best teachers, and still not want a training centre for spies who can do Botox. A training centre for cosmetic surgery and aesthetic treatments. An official cosmetic surgery training centre run by British intelligence in Iraq. It's run by a Quango, of course. There's no official link to intelligence at all, but it's no secret that the UK government support it. I've never heard of it. Cosmetic surgery is an important part of our cosmetic surgery is an important industry in a post-conflict locality. Post-conflict. Well, officially, look, we encourage anything that subverts the political rhetoric and the idea that women should cover themselves. We want them to feel free whilst spying on them. We only want to know more about certain women, not average citizens. What you've said, it shows how nothing's changed. Meaning, the level of knowledge you have of Iraqi life after all this time, it's still superficial and insufficient. Women can get their noses hacked away and their faces frozen to the ice age, but they'll stay covered, and if they don't, that doesn't make them more free. You must know that. We don't have the data. Oh, God, you don't need data, Camilla. You just need eyes. We need your eyes. And on that, thanks. We will go over to Asma, who is going to also read some poems, both from the book and perhaps from her notebook. It's always special getting the handwritten poems from the notebook of the poet. Asma's not only a poet, she's also a campaigner and an activist and a motivational speaker. I'm sure we'll hear more about that after we've finished these readings. We'll go and start having a chat with the audience and whatnot. So, thanks, Asma.
So my first piece is actually called Belongings. It's in the book, but I've got a slightly different version because I do spoken word poetry more than book poetry. This piece is there's a tradition in Sudan, where I'm originally from, where women give away their belongings before they enter their husband's new home. And a cousin told me about this, and I just got really upset because I thought, do you know what, I'm not going to be able to buy anything from now on because I'm going to have to give it all away. But then there was a lot more to it. There was a lot of things that I felt like I would have to give away from my personality. So this poem is based on that, and it also celebrates my relationship with my father. Before I'm stripped of my belongings and have no tangible hold on the memories I harvested, there's so much to do. There will be a time where I have to answer to a man that is not my father, and he may not be as understanding, because he wasn't there the first day of nursery as I stood at the Lanky school gates in my pink summer dungarees. Nor was he there the day that I confessed that maths is one of my weaknesses. And though I admire the accurate craft of an architect, my hands were not created to build soaring skyscrapers and houses, therefore I'm changing my degree. Nor was he there the day that I was summoned, nor was he there the days I was summoned for breakfast, lunch and dinner because everybody knows I can't cook, as I spent my childhood playing cricket, rounders, netball and pool. He wasn't there to know that the only sibling I have is a brother, and therefore I understand more about toy, Hot Wheel cars and BB guns than I do of Barbie and Ken. He wasn't there for all the times I fell and grazed my knee, for all the times I couldn't stop crying, for all the times I couldn't stop laughing, for all the times I embraced my stretching zone, for all the times I questioned, is it time to give it all up before it's officially time to pick up and uproot the way my sisters have before me? He may never understand. He may never understand. He may never understand that my whole life I worked towards the woman I am today. The clothes I give away have the remnants of my life sewed in them. The watches I wore tick between the chapters of my adolescence. The bags I carried me from one country to another. The name I give away is the same name used to register me every day at school, the very same name on my passport and birth certificate. How is it that we erase the history of a woman as if nothing mattered before her wedding day? Sisters and daughters morphed to wives and mothers. With heavy hearts, we are made to say farewell to our former selves. Thank you. My second piece is called Summer, and it's also in the book. It's mostly about my summer holidays and going back to Sudan. And I was born in Sudan, but I came here really young, so I was 1 year old. My dad came here to do a master's, and then we ended up staying after. And then the first time I ever went back to Sudan, I was basically 11 years old, and I remember just seeing this man that looked like my dad, but he wasn't my dad. But I didn't realize that at the time. I called out to him, and I kind of said, Dad. And then I realized it wasn't him, and it was really awkward. And then my mum came, and then she was like, "Oh, it's your dad's brother." And up until then, I didn't realize that my mum and dad had a brother and a sister and a mum and a dad. I literally just thought, I have a mum and dad, but I'm the only person in the world that has a mum and dad. And my friends have mum and dads, but my parents don't. It's just weird. So this piece is kind of around that, and and my relationship with the summer. Winter came, and just like every winter before, I long for summer. And I've been here for decades. You'd think my flesh would have tightened to accommodate the short days, thickened to fight the pinching cold and the pearl-white crumbling snow. But as the last leaf falls every autumn, winter arrives. And I long for summer again. Those 6 weeks between 2 school years, 2 entities, 2 me's infused with relatives and screaming kids. relatives I didn't even know existed until I was in between 11 and 12, and I gazed up at him, my small body reaching halfway between the top of his head and the sandy ground beneath his ship. I confidently called out into the thick night, "Baba!" And then I felt the burning of my cheeks as I realized he wasn't my father. Mother interrupted with her familiar laughter. "Da ammik Makki ya Asma, akhu abuk." This is your uncle Makki, Asma, your daddy's brother. And her words echoed in my mind, "Your daddy's brother, your daddy's brother, your daddy's brother." And I've never experienced the term brother used in this way. Brother was Muhammad, the one that referred to me as his little sister, the one that I played football with, the one I bought 2 of everything because of, the one I observed finish his ice cream before I ate mine because I didn't want to finish mine and then be tortured as I watched him savor every last taste of his. And I guess summer only ever comes to remind me of the warmth of summer, the parts of me that I'm missing but always adorned. Summer lives in the cracks of my skin, the smile of my grandfather, the cries of a newborn cousin, and the laughter of my sweet, sweet Nile. Thank you. My last poem. Yeah. My last poem is something that I've recently been working on. A lot of my work is around being a female and what it means for me to be a woman. And recently I was commissioned to do a piece about men and what my thoughts on men. So this is just a bit about my thoughts on men and what it means to be a man. Don't let them strip you of your masculinity, their absent fathers said, as if your masculinity could be shaken, torn up and given back to you in pieces. Society teaches boys from a young age to match their fragility with toughness, shames them whenever they display emotional weakness. He held me, challenged me to look him in the eyes and tell him what is a man without his pride. The same eyes that have been dry for so long, I can feel the knots in his chest that tie him and choke him and cause his mind to race with endless thoughts deep into the night. A man without his pride is courageous, knows that he's a man no matter what. It takes a man in a man to open up, forgive those that tried to destroy him even before he created his own path from boyhood to manhood. He must act and react like a gentleman should. He must break the cycle, search for the vulnerability within and let those tears flow. For how long will we force men to feel foreign in their own bodies, restricting their self-expression to anger while they hemorrhage on the inside and reach for their fist to remind others they have the upper hand? The upper hand that knows no mercy, only demands, hurts, abuses, rapes, destroys, and when the damage is done, we place the blame and the shame on men. We place the blame and the shame on women and claim boys will be boys. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. We've got we've got quite a while now for questions, so please feel free to ask away. There are people with mics and hands up. Go on, someone start. 'Cause you know once someone starts, everyone will be there you go. Okay, yeah, one there. Thanks. Is that man there? Yeah.
Hello. Lovely
Hi.
readings, by the way. They're really cool. It is a bit of a depressing question to start on, but at the start of the speech you said that there was a lot of violence toward women, in particular, in Islam, and I was wondering why you thought that was, particularly in Britain.
The Tell Mama, the monitoring group that monitors these things, obviously the Islamophobic attacks that have been reported to them, and they provide those statistics. I think it's because, well, a number of reasons, but visually Muslim women are potentially easier to spot than men. Also, it's men doing the attacking, so they're going to look for people who presumably they think are less able to fight back or to hurt them in return. But I think in every form of hatred, there's always like extra hate for women, just because we live in a misogynistic world, and so whatever hate men of a certain identity are getting, women are getting extra layers of that, and so that would be my theory. Want to add anything in there?
I would have said the same thing. We just visually look more Muslim. So I could be spotted just walking down the street with my hijab on. There's no other faith that really wears a hijab except for us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Apart from maybe the last couple of pieces, there was a slightly negative or downbeat tone to much of what you read to us. Could you say anything positive or upbeat?
About life in general?
Well, more particularly about being a Muslim woman, I suppose.
I mean, the mood that I'm in today, I'm just not going to say anything upbeat about being anything, to be honest. But if you guys want to go for it. I do think that it's quite interesting, though, that, like, that's even a thing. Like, I'd like to ask you to give me some upbeat. What's really good about being I can't really see you, but whatever, you're a white male, give us some upbeat things about being a white male. I bet nobody knows.
Well, apart from status in society.
Yeah.
That is there.
Status.
But I'm not publishing something about
Yeah.
my position.
Yeah.
And standing on the stage saying, this is my experience.
Yeah. No, but this isn't actually about saying that. It's just a group of literary works, really, that each writer was given a brief, and that brief was very broad in that it was like, there's a 2,000 word limit. You can write on absolutely any subject that you want. You can write in any form that you want. And by doing that, you give to people a book that actually isn't about saying, I am a Muslim woman and this is my experience. It's actually saying, I am a Muslim woman and this is what I write, and what I write doesn't necessarily have to be about what it is like to be a Muslim woman. That experience will come out through your writing, potentially in some ways, and potentially not. I think that that's the sort of thing that's been happening a lot recently, is that there's that expectation that you're always writing about that experience, but I really wanted to show that actually people are writing about a whole range of things, and that in itself is supposed to kind of tell you a bit about that. And yeah, so I don't have anything upbeat to add.
I think it depends how you view yourself as a writer or as a Muslim woman. Personally, like, I went to a Muslim girls' school, and then I went to university, and I used to go to Arabic school in the mornings, and I used to learn Arabic as well. But I did like history and maths and science literally in English, and then I'd go in the evening and do it again all in Arabic, because that was kind of the upbringing that I had. But I don't see myself as Muslim, like, first and foremost. If I'm playing basketball, I don't say... I know there's a lot of Muslim women that identify with the hijab a lot, and then they kind of say, you know, I'm a hijabi basketballer, I'm a hijabi poet, I'm a hijabi writer. I don't identify with that. I feel like this is a hijab that I wear, yeah, but I put that on one side, and then all the other things that I do, I just enjoy life. Like, there's nothing else to it. I mean...
Okay, there's something upbeat. Basketball.
Yeah.
You love basketball, don't you?
Yeah.
Asma is like a champion basketballer and completed a campaign to allow FIBA. Is it FIBA?
Yeah, FIBA.
Yeah, FIBA. To allow women players in the UK.
It's all over the world. So basically, FIBA is the FIFA of basketball, and there was a ban that didn't allow any religious headgear for players to basically play. Myself and another 12 women across the world, we campaigned, and since the 1st of October, basically, the ban has been officially lifted. So we're going to have representation. Yeah. But that was something that I kind of took part in, and something upbeat about that, if I was to think about it, is for so many years there's been women and men as well, because men that wear the turbans are not allowed to play, Jewish women that wear the yarmulke not allowed to play. Now we're going to have representation in sports, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, following on from that, because, you know, it can't help but make you feel a little bit happy. So now my mood's slightly lifted. And I would say that one of the upbeat things is that feeling of solidarity that, like, over the last few years, because there's been a growing number of representative things, you start to see people in certain areas of public life or in the area that you yourself are interested in being in. And the more and more you see those people having a voice and being outspoken, the more and more you feel like your place there is okay, and that you can kind of occupy a place in society as other people have done for a long time. And so that's been a really positive thing in the last few years, I think, which wasn't there before. I didn't feel that at all when I was a kid. So, enjoying that upbeat thing. Yes, the lady down there. Hi.
Hi. Sabrina, when you were putting the book together, did you feel any kind of sense of in which you were trying to kind of represent all of Muslim women's experience, or the full diversity of Muslim women's experience? Was that kind of in your mind as a kind of, were you trying to negotiate that and deal with that when you were putting it together?
Thanks. I always knew that's an impossible task, because you can't represent any group of people at all fully, and Muslim identity spans across the entire world. So the people of Muslim heritage who are also British can come from Indonesia, or they can come from Morocco, and those two cultures are, you know, there's so many different cultures represented that it is impossible to do that, and then everyone has their own experience anyway. But I thought that the only way to enable some sort of broad representation was to give this like quite loose brief, which I mentioned, about really allowing the writers to just submit the work that they liked themselves, and by doing that, hopefully show quite a range, rather than asking them, because there was discussion initially, do we ask them to respond to a particular question or a particular theme, which is like quite a trend thing to do, and definitely valid and like important to get those voices and those opinions across. But it does become like a more narrow view then of those experiences. So I think like we ended up with like very well-known novelist Leila Abu Leila. She ended up sending in a play, and that was like a real surprise, and showed kind of a different side, not only of her writing, but also of a story that she was interested in, that she hadn't been able to put into a book before. So I think it was successful in that aspect, but of course it could never be completely representative. We need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these, and hopefully that will happen. There has been, since this was published, there has been a number of other books, anthologies coming out by various other Muslim heritage women concentrating on more specific things. So I think that's great. That kind of, people see, oh, okay, there's an audience, there's interest, so other people start doing their stuff, and hopefully it ends up that no one has to do anything like that eventually. But I think we're quite a long way from there yet. Sorry. That's all right, go.
Yeah, I just want to say I really respect the confidence it takes to do that. But is there any repercussions of actually speaking out like you are? Because I know there's a group of women in Palestine who secretly write because they're not allowed to. What's the repercussions that come from you speaking out about men in your culture?
I'll just briefly say, and then you guys can jump in. For me, it's fine because because everyone in my family like just doesn't really know anything about the arts, so like they have no idea that I do anything. And they do know that I'm a writer, but like they just pretend to watch stuff. Actually, I was on a BBC Two programme on a train, and like they watched that, but I didn't say anything about men. That was just about London, so it was fine. And Milton Keynes, who cares? The only person in the book who had any potential problem, there's a young girl, Seema Begum. She was 14 when I did a workshop with her at her school, and she wrote around the theme identity, which was a poetry workshop by the Poetry Society that they get young people to submit into a competition around the theme of identity. And she'd written a really powerful poem about the expectations on her to get married and the way in which that would have to work, and it was amazing. So we put it in the book. It's like being read on Radio 4 next week. It's like been it's really touched a lot of people. And so she had a few days where she was really working up the courage, and because she was 14, we obviously had to get parental permission, have that signed off, which had to go through the school. And she was quite scared for a while, but then I think the librarian and the teachers like really worked quite closely with her parents, and because they knew that it was really her dream to be a published poet, in the end it was fine. But she's the only person that kind of seemed to, maybe that's because she's the only person who actually had to directly tell her parents what she was doing. But yeah, I'm really happy for her that obstacle's been overcome for her at an age of 14, which I think is quite rare. But yeah, what about you guys? What do you think about that question?
My family don't know at all, and I would never tell them because they generally don't support my career in poetry or in the arts and stuff. So they'd be very angry if they found out about some of the stuff that I talk about, because it is very much, I come from a culture where it's very much like hush hush, keep family things within the family, don't talk about stuff, because people will judge you, whatever, people will gossip, and shame will be brought upon us. But I've been going out and telling everything willy-nilly.
What do they think that you do?
Okay, it's really bad, but they think I work in a school at the moment as a teacher.
You do kind of. You do schoolwork, right?
No.
Oh.
I mean, I've shadowed some workshops in schools, but I don't actually work in a school. I sit in my bedroom writing poetry. Like, that's what I do with my time. Yeah, I do that from 8:30 until 3:30, and that's the end of the school day.
If you manage to make as much money from poetry as you would from school teaching, that's pretty amazing.
They'd be very angry, and my brother's actually spoken to me, like he's approached me about it before, and my mum as well, because they found some YouTube videos online of my poetry, and they're like, take that down, the neighbours are talking about it, da, da, da. And literally, I'm not even saying anything bad. There's one poem that's about the area I grew up in, which is the Adam Rock, and it's literally a poem about Adam Rock, and they were like, take it down. But yeah, so it's very difficult, and that's still not been taken down. But I told my mum it's been taken down, so if she finds out it's not been taken down, I mean, shit. Yeah.
Well, my approach is a bit different. I told my parents literally everything. Like, my degree and my master's was in the visual arts, so they've known like about everything that I've done in the past. The thing was, I did a lot of stuff around Sudan, so then my mum couldn't be like, oh no, you're not talking about our country. So now she's always like, yeah, Asma's always talking about our country, and everyone knows about Sudan now because she keeps writing poems about it. And so my thing is, if your mum and dad knows, that it doesn't matter what everyone else is saying. So I always tell them about my pieces. They know that I'm in the book. They know about my different interviews. Belongings was actually, I made it into a video, and I put it on. I was in Sudan at the time, and then I made it into a video, and then it went out, and it went quite virally. So I did see a lot of comments from people being like, oh, why is she writing poetry? Why is she like playing sports or whatever? I don't really care.
I have to say that actually, a lot of my friends who are British white women who do poems about being a woman and sexism, who are very well known, probably get more public trolling, actually, because like their YouTube videos if they've got like over 1 million views, like the levels of abuse that they get, and like on Twitter and Facebook and everything, is absolutely insane. So it's quite interesting that it's definitely not something that's particular to like one culture or anything. Like it's, it can be quite vicious, the stuff that they have to go through just because they're doing like a poem about breastfeeding or something. That might give you a clue. Yes.
Hello. I really enjoyed listening to your writings. Asma, you were talking about when marriage expectation of you in Sudan, when you're supposed to give everything up and belong to another man. When you were growing up as a child with a brother, did you find that your parents treated you as secondary or inferior to your brother, or totally equal as a human being?
Because my brother was the eldest, and it was either he was going to do all the things that I wanted to do, for example, like, well, the feminine kind of things, which was like playing with dolls and stuff, or I was going to do the opposite, and I would be the one that played. We call it, in Sudan, like tomboy is called Muhammad Walad, which means basically tomboy. So I think they preferred me to be tomboy than my brother to be feminine. So so I washed the dishes, my brother washed the dishes. He cooks, he's actually a chef. I don't cook, I don't do any of that stuff. And we didn't get treated any differently. The only thing that I would say that my mom treated me and him differently on was the fact that he was allowed a bike and I wasn't. And I got really upset about that. And then in my master's, I bought a bike and put it in the middle of the gallery and was like, yeah, I've got myself a bike now. But apart from that, they valued his education, they valued mine. There was nothing really, they didn't really distinguish between us too much. And there was only a gap, like a year and 3 months gap between me and my brother. So whatever he did, I just did, and we just like followed each other around everywhere. Now that I'm older, I think there was a couple of years where I do remember like my mom trying to get me to dress in a certain way after reaching puberty. And she'd kind of police what I was wearing. So I'd walk out and she'd be like, let me see what you're wearing today before we went to school. And I'd show her, because I was in sixth form. And then, but it didn't go beyond that. My dad didn't care. He wasn't bothered about what me and what I wore. And my brother tried. He tried once. He was literally like, because I went to town with him and he didn't want me to go with him, and I sort of tagged along. And on the way, he turned around because I was walking too close to him. So he turned around and kind of told me, go wear that abaya thing, the big black one, we call it abaya. So it's like, go wear abaya. And then I told him, listen, I will wear abaya when you wear short trousers, because Islamically you're supposed to wear short trousers, and grow a beard. And he was like, okay, that's fine, let's just go. So yeah, no, we were treated quite equally in general.
Well, I think we've got maybe one more question.
Hi. First of all, I'd just like to say I think you're all very brave for the way you write, and thank you for sharing. I'd actually like to ask each of the panel, we hear a lot of negativity, as the first questioner mentioned, but if we're all sitting here in, say, 10, 15 years' time, and you maybe, at that stage, maybe have your own families, what would your hope be for each of the panellists for maybe a change that's come about that you would like to see in the lives of your own children, your own daughters?
Thank you. Good question to end on.
Oh, me.
We'll go around this way. You can inspire us to have a thought.
It's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, I think we were talking about the sort of Islamophobia that kind of happens, but I think for my kids, I'd want there not to be racism within my own as well. I mean, I'm from Sudan, so we're kind of considered by Africans Arabs because we're too light, and then by Arabs we're too dark, so we're African. So we're not here or not there either. So for me personally, it's less to do with being Muslim. It's more to do with accepting one another in our own communities. I feel like you can't really go out into the other communities and kind of say, look, stop being mean to us because we're Muslims, and stop Islamophobia, etc. And you haven't even dealt with what's happening in your own community. So I'd hope that, you know, my own community is much nicer to my own kids, because it doesn't really matter what other communities think if
But
your own community is accepting of your kids as well.
until the wider society is nicer, that can't happen though, because like people internally are only horrible to each other because they're operating within a huge system that's horrible to them, I think. So
It depends though, because like with me, I grew up in a white area when I was young, so it wasn't until I was 10 years old that I actually experienced racism. And when I did experience it, it wasn't from English white people, it was from Pakistani people. And then it was like, oh, basically you N-word, you blackjack, go back to your own country kind of thing. And that's what caused me a lot of grief in my childhood growing up. Not that when it's other people, you know they're other people, they have different views, they have different experiences. It's fine, you can accept it. But it's when it's your own people, it hurts because you feel like you belong and suddenly you don't. So where exactly then do you go?
I think I'd want for my children to be happy and comfortable to be whatever they want to be like. It's like a lot of my Muslim friends have asked me the question like, oh, what would you do if your child was gay or something like that? And it's like, well, as much as it would clash with my parents' views, it doesn't clash with mine. And I'd want my children to feel comfortable in their own skin and to be able to do whatever they want to do and not be held back by any constraints that I've posed upon them. Yeah, completely different childhood from mine. Thank you very much.
I'd just like there to be a total eradication of this sense that multiple identities are somehow a difficult thing, and that being one thing means you can't be another thing, and that means you have to explain the other thing to the other thing, and all of that stuff. It's just like, don't we live in a world where everything's mixed up, and that's good, and that's fine. And to imagine that my kids would never have to sit on a stage and explain something like that would be fantastic. And that whenever there was a panel on the stage, it would be people who were of all mixed identities. And so that kind of focus on a particular identity would seem strange because everyone would already know a little bit about everything. I don't know, totally idealistic. But thank you so much, Asma, Nafisa, audience, for coming here, and enjoy the rest of the festival.